Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
All right, great to be with you on the show today.
It's a great day. It's cold. It's chilly. It feels like fall. It feels like football season, Steve. That's what it feels like today.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, felt that way yesterday. Out of the practice field, it was like 65, 66 degrees. Chase Meyer was back in the locker room. Chase Meyer says, oh, man. Says, I got to get warmer clothes. I go, I said, warmer clothes? He goes, I'm from California.
Oh, boy.
I looked at him. I said, you also kicked at Penn.
Sunshine ain't ready for cold?
Really? So, yeah.
Oh, geez. This is it's a fun football story to start off with here, but it's NIL related. Don't know if you saw this, but Oklahoma State has announced and has shown photos. Mm-hmm. They're putting the QR code on the back of every player's helmet for the NIL collective and the NIL fund through Oklahoma State. So that means if you see the Cowboys running on the field and a QR code, you can scan it and donate via their helmets, which is definitely something new. It is 1.5 square inches big, so it's not the largest. It's visible from the stands, but it's more visible from the TV broadcasts. So it's going to get fans at home who are Oklahoma State fans to be able to donate to the NIL fund. Wanted to ask you about this because it's one of those new things we're seeing where, like, I think Colorado is practicing with players' social media handles on the back of their jerseys. Like, all these things are popping up where it's not the most serious thing in the world. It's more of a funky thing. And I wanted to get your feelings on it, taking the temperature on it.
Well, okay. Everybody's trying to come up with an innovative way to do it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean any of these things are going to work.
Of course.
Which is a big, everybody's guessing. And because they're guessing, they're trying to come up with any way they can think of to get more NIL opportunities. Mm-hmm. I mean, James Franklin went around, did a series of events for Penn State. Pat Flannery's been working hard on the basketball front. Dan Caballo's been working hard on the football front. Mm-hmm. But it's a constant grind to do it. And the reason is that when you donate to NIL, you then have to donate again next year to NIL. It's something that is constant. Mm-hmm.
Instead of the one big donation and one shot to give money to a program to do X, Y, or Z, it is a yearly subscription pretty much is what they want you to sign up for to donate $30,000, $40,000 a year. Right. And as we've discussed, it can become a lot for people.
So so now you're going to let's do QR codes. Let's the bottom line is everybody's going to be giving money out next year anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be, just so people know, it is not going to be, we got $22 million. 11 going to go to Williams Sports, 11 going to go to, no, it's not going to happen that way. Mm-mm. Okay? It's going to be split. There'll be a split at some point, but it's going to be done realistically. Yeah. Sorry. It's called life. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's going to get money anyway. Mm-hmm. The question is going to be, what does that then do to the fervor for NIL? Now, you're going to have schools requesting it left and right. Mm-hmm. Ohio State claims to have a $20 million payroll this year. Yeah. And that, of course, it's amazing when you lose to Michigan 3 years in a row, suddenly out of nowhere, people really want to donate.
And I believe the $20 million payroll is what? How close is it to the Pittsburgh Pirates payroll? It's pretty close, I think.
The Pirates are $60 million, I think. Something like that.
So it's not that far off.
Right. But that's the issue moving forward. Will people see the $22 million per year and say, well, okay, they're already getting the money, they don't need it?
Mm-hmm.
I was asked in Camp Hill last week to explain the $22 million and to explain NIL. And I said, well, let's start with this. I said, based on the way the question was phrased, I said, I think you think the money's coming from the NCAA. And the guy said, yeah. He says, no. I said, every school has to come up with the $22 million themselves. I said, and there's going to be a 4% escalator in this moving forward. They went, oh. I said, so it's going to be a combination of the $22 million and whatever cut goes to football. Mm-hmm. And I have a pretty good handle on how much the cut's going to be, but I'm not at liberty to say it.
We'll find that out at a later time.
Yeah, but I sort of know in the neighborhood what they want to do, basically. And but you're still going to have an NIL component. Mm-hmm. The question is going to be at most schools across the country, will there be less of an incentive to donate to NIL because the players are already getting money?
Yeah. It's the
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Well, it's like if I know a player is going to be getting paid X amount of money, I don't know how much, but let's say it's like $20,000. Why am I going to donate $20 when I know he's already going to get $20,000? It's a weird.
So
yeah.
So now the pitch is going to be they're all getting basic money. Mm-hmm. Great, but your donation can help put us over the top with certain individuals. I believe that NIL they might be able to start bringing it in internally instead of having external outlets of collectives. You can start doing it internally now,
which is what I believe Oklahoma State is doing. That's what their thing is it's the NIL collective they are creating for the athletes. They are just putting the QR codes on their helmets. Well, or in the case of Colorado, similar things.
Right. I mean, that's fine that they're doing that. It's just a different way of getting the word out there. Mm-hmm. But that's all it is getting the word out there. To be honest with you, I would be very surprised it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. But it's clever. It's innovative. I don't think it's going to work. Mm-hmm. That's just me. There's going to be more pressure than ever for athletic departments to the donor base because, for example, Penn State and so many others in the Big Ten, they can handle this $22 million going forward. Mm-hmm. But I'll keep returning to Pitt, but what about Pitt? Can they handle it? Mm-hmm. Can they even approach $22 million?
Yeah.
I don't think they can, realistically. And the reason I say that realistically, I'm not picking on them. It just turns out they're in the ACC. Mm-hmm. We know what the ACC TV contract is.
Yeah.
It is less than half of the Big Ten TV contract on average. Less than half. That's why Florida State's so upset, because they say every year this goes by, we're falling further and further financially behind. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're getting $36 million from your media contract, then there's the ACC, there's the college football playoff money, things like that. Well, remember, the Big Ten's getting all that money too. Mm-hmm. The SEC's getting all that. They're same money. So you're treading water here. And Pitt can't make up for it in attendance.
Nope.
Right? They can't make up for it in attendance. Penn State has a 94% renewal rate in a 110,000-seat stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Or they have, 94,000 season tickets and a 110,000-seat stadium. 94,000 season tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and you look at a Pitt game on TV, and again, with all due respect, I'm just doing analysis here.
Yeah.
I'm not, right? But because Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium is the Steelers stadium, the seats are Steelers gold. yellow.
Yeah.
Well, they stick out on TV when they're not filled. And you can see pit games, they're just empty seats all over the place unless they're playing Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Then they sell those games out. They get a good crowd for Clemson. They'll get a good crowd for Florida State, but they rotate on and off the schedule. Yeah. And so they can't make up for it with attendance. They can't. And that is that's the big problem with all this. There's a bunch of schools out there that are in the same boat. You're going to tell me that Wake Forest and Duke have stadiums of less than 40,000? They can't do it.
Nope.
So your ability to compete in Power 4 when the guy down the road is capable of offering $22 million, and you're looking around going, I don't know how we're going to do this. It's a big problem.
It's an issue. It's a real issue.
You have to have, quote, your mega donors step forward. Well, that's the issue here.
Yeah.
And can you get your mega donors to step forward? And
it's an issue, especially because you need the mega donors. The problem is they donate in like one shot, and a lot of the time they don't donate constantly, and so they're banking on all of the less than mega donors to donate constantly. The problem is it is a lot of money year in, year out to donate, and do they want to donate and pony up X amount of money every year? It's a lot. I barely want to donate X amount of money to my school. It's a lot of money for me.
But then there's another part to it, too. Part of this settlement that they have, and again, this is court mandated. This isn't one of those like, hey, this is great. You know, it's like, I can't believe they're going to. I always love when I hear they're going to pay the players.
They're being forced to pay the players.
The court says you have to. If they didn't settle, it would have been triple that amount.
And that's a lot of money.
And I'm not exaggerating on that. Because antitrust numbers are trebled.
So it would have been 66.
That's called antitrust law. The minimum would have been 66. They could have settled for even more than that.
Yeah.
They could have said 50 million and be 150 million. Who knows? Right? So they settled. But it's the back pay one from 17 to 23 where 60% of it's coming out of NCAA reserves, and I try to explain to the audience the gentleman's question. I said, this is probably what you're thinking about, is 60% from the reserves, but they said the other 40% will come from the distributions from the NCAA basketball tournament over the next 10 years, which does two things. One, it ensures the viability of the NCAA men's basketball tournament because they need it.
Yes.
Right? To keep going to pay this. But number two, it really hurts schools like Bucknell, Coastal Carolina, San Jose State, and so forth, that are not getting the big football contracts. They're not getting any football TV money, whatever. A big share of what they're getting is going to be from the NCAA basketball tournament, and they're all going to have to take less because of this, and it hurts them as well.
Yep. There we go. I wanted to change little gears real fast. It's all right with you. And no, we're not going to soccer. I know you're jumping for joy. We are going to the world of doping. A similarly fun topic here on the show.
Doping?
Of doping. So yesterday.
Okay. You said dope. I thought of Jason. It was like, Jason. I think Jason's outstanding. So.
The current number one player in the world in tennis, Jannik Sinner, tested positive twice for an anabolic steroid back in March, but he will not be suspended by the International Tennis Integrity Agency. They announced that it was entered his system apparently through a massage from his physiotherapist.
Yeah.
He tested positive for clostebol, which is the exact same thing Fernando Tatis Jr. tested positive for that got him an 80-game suspension and dropped by Adidas back in 2022. And Sinner is not getting suspended, and none of this stuff is happening. And people are saying, he's like, oh, it wasn't intentional, all these things. But a lot of the players are not too happy about it. So Nick Kyrgios, one of the big players in tennis right now, says it's ridiculous. Whether it was accidental or planned, you get tested twice with a banned substance, you should be gone for 2 years. Your performance was enhanced. Massage cream, yeah, nice. Rolling eyes emoji. That is what he posted about, because it's more than fair that everyone's mad about it. Every other sport, you get suspended. Tatis, same thing, suspended 80 games. Why doesn't this dude get suspended or have anything else happen to him? There's weird standards across sports when it comes to doping, and it makes no sense sometimes.
They all have their own rules. What makes it different in tennis and golf versus Fernando Tatis is that in tennis and golf, you're an independent contractor as opposed to being on a team and have a contract with the team.
Yeah.
So as independent contractors, there are rules that they have, that are applied to them that are different than team sports. So, and so the same rule for Fernando Tatis is the same rule for Aaron Judge with the Yankees. Independent contractors, and what gets me is that, let's start with this. I don't know how much of a favor they're doing to Sinner or what it means to the tour, but he's not a draw. Okay? No offense. Really good player, but who's buying tickets to go see him play?
Yeah. The draws
they're paying their money to see Djokovic,
Nadal,
Alcaraz, people like that. The draws are the stars. Right? He may be highly ranked, adorable, not a draw. Okay? So this isn't being done. Let's start with that premise. It's not being done because they think he's some draw. And boy, by letting him play in the U.S. Open, we might sell out. Hey, excuse me, you're selling out anyway because they think Alcaraz and Djokovic are going to be in the final, like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they think. Right? They think, and same thing on the women's side with the top players.
They want to see Osaka.
Right.
They want to see Coco Gauff.
Right. It's that's so.
It's a weird topic.
But no, it's not. First of all, let's start with this. Is this stuff really working?
What?
We're doing a lot of modern science today, which I think makes the difference. Like, for example, when I see football, basketball guys, the catapult system being chipped, keeping track of heart rates, things like that, that's a huge advancement. Making a couple of changes in practice based on what you're getting from data, huge advancement. But at the same time, why somebody has to explain to me, why is it before all of these sports science innovations that Greg Maddux took the ball every fifth day and didn't miss turns? Don Drysdale took the ball every fifth day, didn't miss turns. Somebody has to explain to me how season after season till later in his career, Johnny Unitas lined up under center. I mean, somebody has to explain to me why Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan were playing 82 games a year over and over and over again.
Heck, how LeBron's made it 21 years
Right.
playing 82 games.
Right. Okay. Somebody has to explain that to me, how but LeBron's part of the sports science era. It's a little bit different. How do all these old-time players keep playing over and over and over again And the sport was just as physical then as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And there are different kinds of injuries today that I had never heard of until the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Pectoral tears. Like, what?
UCL tears.
Triceps. Like, right. Okay, before it was knees, shoulders,
rotator cuff sometimes.
Ankle. Right?
Wrist.
Not even rotator cuff. Didn't hear much about that. Now, maybe it's because they found it and they can do something about it. And maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But why is it year after year, and guys got hurt and they missed time. I got that.
Yeah.
Right? But, for example, it was, what year was it? 1965? 1965, the Colts had to play the Packers in a one-game playoff to get to the NFL championship game to play Cleveland. And Bart Starr got hurt early in the game, and then Zeke Bratkowski had to replace him. Well, Starr, banged up to heck, plays the next week against Cleveland. Right?
Yeah.
Like, all taped up, everything like that, really banged up. He probably paid a price later in his career, because eventually he needed rotator cuff surgery. But but why? Why is that, as opposed to today, where I've got creams and I've got this and I've got that, like all the recovery stuff makes sense. Cold tubs, hot tubs, cherry juice, pickle juice. All sorts of things that that they've invested a lot of time in. But why is it people weren't missing tons of time before? Now, they weren't making as much money, so they knew they darn well better show up.
And I know we've discussed it on this show, so we won't get back into the whole too many games at a young age thing. We're not going to discuss that now, but it is just something to note. I do want to get to a topic. We've discussed it in bits and pieces over time. The idea of having a strong connection and a linear path between the owner or GM of a team and the coach and the players and the staff and everyone, how important that is in terms of everyone pulling in the same direction. And the reason I bring it up, I know it's soccer related, but this morning, Enzo Maresca, the manager of Chelsea, he insisted that Chelsea is not a mess right now because they have more than 40 first-team players. His official thing was, I'm not working with 42 players. That is on the outside. I'm only working with 21. I banished 20 players.
Right.
That feels like a bit of a mess because he's only working with half the players they have. He's not using the other half the players. They're just sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
Not training, not making you money, not doing diddly. They're just earning money and doing stuff on their own. That is an entire team doing whatever they want without a coach, which is just crazy.
Right.
And it's very, very clear and apparent that him and the ownership and the players are very clearly not pulling in the same direction. And it feels important to get the idea of just what it means when a front office, a team, and everyone goes in the same direction. And I wanted to ask you about that because we're seeing it a lot more where as soon as there's division amongst the team, someone's let go, usually the coach, and then players are shipped out, and you see it constantly. And it was depicted in Moneyball with Brad Pitt. When he wanted to start certain players, he got them started, and that was the whole thing that happened with Billy Beane.
Art Howe was not portrayed well in that.
He was
movie.
not portrayed well at all. But that was a moment where
it was not accurate how he was portrayed. And, it's not that Philip Seymour Hoffman didn't do a good job of as an actor, but the portrayal of Art Howe in Moneyball, the movie, is not fair or accurate to Art Howe. That he wasn't the antagonist.
Yeah.
He was made out to be. It's like Jerry West
in Showtime
was absolutely not portrayed. It's called poetic license.
The point, though, was pulling in different directions never makes things go easily. If people pull in different directions, it doesn't usually signify good things for a franchise or for a college team. So, like, what does it mean when you're all going in the same direction for the same goal, same path, all of it? Like, what does that mean for a team, for a program, for an organization?
Look, you have to have defined roles. And what's happening is that in some sports, the general manager and the analytics department are telling managers what lineups to use. No, you hired that person to be the manager. Let him manage. You hired that person to be the coach, whether it's a woman, a man, whomever. Let them coach. Right? They're there every day of practice. They know who should be playing. No, they don't play favorites. Okay? Because their job's on the line.
Yeah.
They're not playing favorites. I always love when I hear that. Oh, they're playing, they just play their favorites. Like, okay, you're not.
Yeah.
As I said years ago, the biggest surprise about the job is how little people actually know. Right? And so you hear comments like that. They only play favorites. Like, I'll never forget with Joe. He's not playing the best players. I'm like, what are you talking about? They got this 5-star on the bench. This guy over here is like, oh, he played these two guys. I'm like, I said, do you think in practice? They said, you know what? I think we'll do this and tie one hand behind her back because we think it would be more competitive.
I
said, or do you think they went through practice and said, you know what? I hate to say this, but those two guys are playing better. We got to play them. I said, so which conversation do you think took place?
Yeah.
He's not playing the best players. I'm like, you have to have defined roles. General managers have to be GMs and figure out ways to strengthen their team, whether they're running a soccer team, baseball team, football team. That's their job. Scouts need to scout. They need to generate information for you so that you can then make the right moves to have the right balance on your team. Coaches need to coach. Managers need to manage. If you don't like the job they're doing as a coach or a manager, you are more than entitled to remove them and put somebody in that you think can handle this personnel better. That's fine. But don't handcuff them. Right? It's not up to the coach or the manager to handcuff the general manager. It's also not up to the general manager to handcuff the coach or the manager.
Agreed.
Right? I mean, that's why you have roles. Just like assistant coaches, right, have roles and need to be allowed to be the head coach of their position.
Yeah.
And it's okay for a head coach, for example, to get in a meeting, and even if they agree with the decision the position coach has made, to still ask questions to challenge them to make sure of the conviction of their decision. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's good management.
Coaches want you, the head coach wants to make sure their assistant is 100% all in on what they're doing. Because if they believe it, he'll believe it too, and he'll be on board with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that to me is how it's supposed to work. What has happened over the last 7 or 8 years is that you have people usurping the role of the guy in the dugout, the coach on the bench, and all trying to get involved. Like, just stay back.
Yeah.
Okay. Right here, it's 4th down and 3. Analytic. What does analytics say? You go for it every time. All right, let's just take 4th and 2. 4th down and 2. Analytics says go for it every time. It says it. What if the ball's in your own 13-yard line? No. Can't do it.
Cost a lot of coaches a lot of jobs the past few years because they went with the analytics. And in situations like that, where a guy like a Brandon Staley who got torched to pieces by people in the press and media and by players because that was what was happening is he was doing these things and everyone's like, what are you doing?
Well, but here's the other part. The other part, though, is entering the Big Ten this year is a guy that tends to do the same things. Dan Lanning. Okay? You know what Dan Lanning's record is against Washington?
What is it?
It's 0-3.
Oof.
People don't realize Oregon has not beaten Washington since Dan Lanning got there.
And why would that be, Steve?
Well, no, I mean, number one, Washington's really good. But in one critical game, he made a couple decisions on fourth down where you're like, I'm not so sure I'd do that right here, right now. I mean, when I'm watching games, or broadcast, I'll just say from broadcasting games, like Juwan Howard and Mike Woodson would call timeouts, and I go, okay, you're on a 10-2 run right now. Don't I want them to call the timeout? I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, Dick and I will look at each other like, really? And Woodson and Howard are as guilty as anybody of it. Now, Juwan, of course, is in coaching right now. Well, he's probably coaching somewhere, but not in the Big Ten.
Yeah. I have 3 ownership structures I want to point out to you and see your thoughts on in terms of what category they fall in. We'll start with one I think is probably the positive and the everyone pulling in the same direction. Miami Heat. Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, the players, they all pull in the same direction. They have for years because they're all aligned. They're all going the same direction. And look at that. They've won titles. They've made finals. Like they are all going in the same direction at the same time, becoming an unstoppable force.
Right. And by the way, I think Spoelstra is going to be the Olympic coach in Los Angeles.
I would agree. He is. It's going to be him and Ty Lue as the 2 main guys anyway. It's going to be one of the 2 of them. The other one's going to be the assistant coach. I'm fairly confident of that because it was just announced, of course, Steve Kerr is going to step aside. He's incredible, but they all pull in the same direction. I have a next one for you, which is going to be, again, in the NBA, Minnesota Timberwolves. Who's the owner?
A Wolf, isn't it? No, Ziggy Wolf is Taylor's the owner.
Glenn Taylor's the owner. Is he? I don't know. A-Rod and Mark Lowry, are they buying the team? Yeah, but who knows anymore if that's happening. They're in a court case to find out who's got it. So currently, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Ziggy Wolf owns the Vikings, by the way.
And you've got
Glenn Taylor owns the T-Wolves. And he's still the owner.
He's still the owner, but
guess who's signing the checks?
But that's the thing is now A-Rod and Lowry are paying for it, and there's a court battle over who the owner is because you've got Anthony Edwards, Chris Finch, and Tim Connolly all going the same direction, but they don't know who to report to at the top. Do they try and make cost-cutting moves and trade guys like Karl Anthony Towns? That was the whole discussion, is A-Rod and Mark Lowry wanted to trade the guys away, get rid of Cat, save some money, because they're way over the luxury tax right now, way over that first apron.
I'd trade Cat.
So, but that's the thing is they want to trade Cat. Why?
You know what? He's not very good.
Cool. So you want to trade Cat. The problem is on a trade with a star player, they've got to get the owner to sign off on it.
He's a big name that does not play like a star.
I agree. But to do a trade like that, you have to get the owner to kind of clear stuff like that to make sure they're okay with it. And they're going to go to Glenn Taylor, and he's going to say, no, I want to keep this team together. So all of a sudden, the guys who are taking over as owners don't want it to happen. Glenn Taylor.
But the person that is currently the owner, okay?
Yeah.
Is the one that is signing the checks.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and right now you have an ownership dispute there. Well, okay, you got an ownership dispute, but who's still the owner? That's who you take direction from. I don't sit there and wait for a coup d'etat to do whatever.
Either way, does not feel like there's much pull in the same direction because if you're a Tim Connolly, you're like, I don't know who am I asking for direction? Because apparently A-Rod and Lowry were the ones who suggested to do certain things. And so they started taking direction from them. Right. And then all of a sudden the contract apparently passed a certain date and they got mad and Taylor got mad and now we're in this legal battle. So that's happening.
Well, I mean, that's,
The last one I have for you, the fun one, down in I believe it's named after him, Jerry World. Jerry Jones, probably the most famous owner taking charge of a team. Is CeeDee Lamb going to sign a contract? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Who has any idea? I got no clue. He has such a tendency to just make it about him. And it honestly amazes me how good he is at it. How good he is at taking charge of everything and not letting anyone do anything on their own.
First of all, he owns it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's his baby.
It's literally called Jerry World.
Well, it's called Jerry World because he built it.
Yeah.
Okay? He didn't take state money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft didn't take state money to build Gillette Stadium. As opposed to other places where you're going around and around trying to get money from states and counties and local authorities. And so the stadium's one thing, but Jerry Jones's biggest problem is not Jerry Jones, the owner. It's Jerry Jones, the general manager.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about contracts. Okay? It's not about contracts like CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and so forth. It is about talent acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been his problem, has been talent acquisition.
Yeah.
He has been enamored with getting the star player instead of just getting the good player.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that's a big problem. The GM is, as the owner, is a problem. Let's go all the way back to the Giants' Wellington Mara, who was a great owner in the NFL. In the history of the league, Wellington Mara, you can't say enough.
Father of John Mara, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But early on, he made some moves with the Giants in the 60s, personnel-wise, because he pulled off a couple of trades that were really good. He got Y.A. Tittle in a trade, like, wow. So then he kind of thought he could do some things. Well, then he made some other deals that suddenly they went from a team that went to 3 straight NFL championship games. They lost all 3. But they went to 3 straight NFL championship games. He made some deals, including Sam Huff going to Washington. And it didn't work. Suddenly they got old and they acquired the wrong personnel. Well, finally, it did get to a point in the 70s where the 70s where the Maras finally hired their first GM. It's the same story with this. Same story with this is he needs to pass off the job of talent acquisition, GM, to somebody else. Because I think that's what's been holding him back. It's not as if, hey, look, did they find diamonds in the rough, such as a Dak Prescott in the 4th round? Sure. Did they make the right move in getting Micah Parsons? Sure. I thought, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. Sure. Did they rebuild the offense? But there's something missing with that team. And it's also a soap opera there every day. There's something about the Cowboys, very much like the Yankees, where they're just a daily soap opera. And I don't... I just sit back and I say to myself, you got to let somebody else, a pro's pro, run the show.
Yeah. Like, you are sitting there with incredible talent at the 3 of the biggest positions you need it. Micah Parsons is the leader of the defense. Incredible at pretty much everything. You've got a top-level quarterback, a starting caliber quarterback, we'll say, because I know some people are very weird about Dak Prescott. A starting caliber quarterback in Dak.
He's a top 12 quarterback in the league.
He's a top talent in the league at quarterback, and you've got a top talent at receiver. You've also had talent like Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott and Leighton Vander Esch and all these guys across the defense who have been great and awesome when they've been playing. Randy Gregory on the defensive end. Like, what's his name? DeMarcus Lawrence. Talent everywhere. But what have the Cowboys not done in the past, 20 years? Anything. Not a single thing. The Yankees and them are pretty much the same as you said. As a Yankees fan, I love getting great talent. It's awesome to have all the talent and stuff in the world. But, I would like one of these, please. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, it's hard to get one of those. The problem is Dallas is not advancing to NFC Championship games.
But that's the thing. They're not getting close enough to even get them. The Yankees the same. They're not getting to the possibility of getting one.
Yeah.
They're falling way short every time.
And, look, the Yankees are in the same boat. Look, Brian Cashman's been there for a long time. I am not big on Aaron Boone as a manager.
Nope.
Just personal opinion.
I agree.
I'm just not, and I've never been big on him as a manager. And it's one of those where you would think after all this time, it would grow on you, and it has not.
No.
And that is, in other words, I have not changed my opinion about him at all. I didn't have if time goes, I've always had the ability, okay, you know what?
You change your mind, you've owned up to things.
Right. I'll say, you know what? I didn't have that one right. I've always done that. So when I tell you I haven't changed my mind, I have not changed my mind. I didn't think he was a good hire to begin with, and I still don't think he's a good hire.
Nope.
But both those teams are under the microscope. And you wonder sometimes if the pressure of the media and the pressure of the fan base, the worst thing you can do when you're in a decision-making spot is to panic. And I feel over time, the Yankees have panicked, and they've gone way out over their skis. Let's get Giancarlo Stanton. I'm going, why? I mean, when they got him, I was like, what? Why? I mean, what? You have to be kidding me, right? And the Cowboys have been the same way. They always want to do the splashy thing instead of doing the solid football thing.
You know what team especially has not panicked the past few years? Boston Celtics. There was all these rumors. Should they trade Jaylen Brown? Should they trade Jason Tatum? Should they do all these things to get to the championship? They said no. We're going to add Drew Holiday because why wouldn't we want Drew Holiday? We're going to add Derek White. We're going to add Kristaps Porzingis. And look what happened.
But Brad Stevens did it for the right reasons. Brad Stevens looked at Malcolm Brogdon and he said, okay, well, he's a lot like Tatum and he's a lot like Brown. He had Marcus Smart, maybe in the point guard, but he's a lot like Tatum. He's a lot like Brown. And he said, look, we need to change up and have some different components instead of having 5 of the same out on the court. So they acquired initially Derek White, former first-round pick, who is a guy that doesn't demand the ball, but is a good defender, a good shooter, and just plays within a team concept. They then made the trade with Smart, and they get Porzingis, where suddenly out of nowhere, instead of having a Robert Williams, because Williams was in the Brogdon trade, right? We're going to have this guy then go inside, outside, and by the way, we're going to keep Al Horford, who in limited minutes can be a star. And now we're going to bring in Drew Holiday, because Drew Holiday, who was pivotal in Milwaukee winning, because he's a great defender
Mm-hmm.
and picks his spots offensively. And they got rid of him to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the Celtics took Brogdon, Williams. They packaged him to Portland. They got Holiday, who's different than Marcus Smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So they changed up and they said, who are the guys that it would be ridiculous for us to get rid of?
Mm-hmm.
You always build around your core, right? Now, the Phillies back in the early 20-teens
Mm-hmm.
picked out the core of Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Roy Halladay,
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels. We're going to build around those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying, well, why didn't it work? Well, it didn't work because suddenly Ryan Howard in a playoff game against the Cardinals on the last play of the series popped his Achilles,
Mm-hmm.
changed everything.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Rollins and Lee and Halladay over this time also got old and started breaking down.
Yeah.
Right? Especially the pitchers, they start breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they had the right idea.
Yeah.
Just because you have the right idea doesn't mean circumstances don't enter into it.
Some things it just doesn't work.
The Cowboys don't identify who their core guys are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, Prescott, Lamb, Parsons, but they're very scattered
Mm-hmm.
in decision-making about the other spots on the team around them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The Yankees are very scattered in the decisions that they make around Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Garrett Cole, people like that, but they're very scattered in their other decisions as to what they do. Gleyber Torres is a player that does not fit with what they're doing. He doesn't fit. Right? Okay? That doesn't help. Their catching situation isn't great. Okay? Rizzo got old, got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now your entire infield is not as good defensively because Rizzo's not there.
Yeah. You know what team I was the most happy with in terms of not giving in to the pressure and not giving into the big thing, taking the big swing? Because so often you hear all the talk of a team being like, they need to take a big swing on a guy. They need to go for it now. And they need to do this huge thing. That was the whole thing with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Let's trade one of them for Kevin Durant. And KD ended up going to Phoenix. Hasn't really worked out so far. And the teams that don't make those moves, like for me, the Knicks, they didn't make that swing. People were like, get Donovan Mitchell, get Karl Anthony Towns last summer. What'd they not do? Didn't go get those two guys like last summer, 2 years ago. What'd they end up doing? They got some dude named Jalen Brunson on a 4-year, 90, 100, whatever it was, $1 million contract. They ended up getting him. They got Josh Hart, and they built this team, and all of a sudden, look at that. They're a really gosh darn good team who didn't make a panic move, who didn't do crazy things. The 2018 New Orleans Saints lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Vikings. What did they not do? Panic. Didn't freak out. Didn't make crazy changes. They brought in players across the board in certain positions to help out the team. DeMario Davis, incredible when they brought him in from the Jets. Just an outstanding human being, outstanding player, all of it. Ted Ginn Jr., dude's a deep threat. Brought him in. If it weren't for a referee, that team may have won a title. And they didn't make a panic move, didn't blow it all up for one guy. They said, we're going to keep the team together. We're going to play around Marcus Williams, Marshawn Lattimore, P.J. Williams on defense, DeMario Davis, Anzalone, Cameron Jordan, all these guys. And then get one piece here and there, add a little bit, add a little sauce to this spot, get us another running back to help on out, get Mark Ingram back, all these things. And look at that, it works.
But you also have to get the right star.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with this. Getting the right star. You mentioned Kevin Durant. Well, there are certain people that are labeled as stars. Karl Anthony Towns is labeled as a star. Is he the right star? No.
Mm-mm.
Right? Is Harden the right star?
Mm-mm.
Nope. Is Westbrook the right star? No. Just because you're labeled a star by somebody,
Yeah.
and then people jump on board like they're a star.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to watch as to how they play the game and what they do within the team concept as to whether they make like not only themselves but people around them better. And like Tatum and Brown are the right stars because they don't care who scores.
Mm-hmm.
They've never cared who scored.
Yeah.
They never cared who was labeled number one.
Mm-hmm.
Never. All right? And they were both third overall picks in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Personality enters into this. And a lot of teams do a mediocre job of investigating personality. Now, part of that is the free agent system, and the free agency opened at midnight at 12:01. I signed the dude. Well, how much time do you really get to know him? You couldn't. You're not allowed to.
Yeah. You know what? Personality in free agency, at least, has proven right, as we discussed earlier a little bit, mentioned it lightly.
And by the way, you mentioned Brunson. His personality is beautiful for the game.
Have you heard of a player who turned down $100+ million on any contract just because? He could have taken a 5-year, $170-ish million contract.
Right.
He said, I'm good. Give me the 4-year 156 now. I don't want to sign the 5-year. Oh, by the way, it was 5-year 269. My bad. 5 years, $269 million. He said, I'm okay. I'll take the less money now. Because he would rather give the team a shot to win, to re-sign OG Anunoby, to bring in his guys, Mikal Bridges and DiVincenzo and Hart and everyone, and say, I want to do it. They brought in Isaiah Hartenstein. He even said it this offseason. He was like, if the numbers were the same, he would have signed with the Knicks because he wanted to. But financially, they physically could not get even close to what he got offered. He's the right personality. Brunson, right personality. Hart, right personality. Deuce McBride, the right. That is what doing a good job is testing out, checking on every player, asking 5 or 6 guys, what do you think about this person? Asking the locker room attendant for the Mavericks, hey, what are your thoughts on Jalen Brunson? I want to hear your feelings on him as a person, as a personality. Like, how does he interact with everyone else? Like, if he isn't interacting with them in a positive manner, I don't want him on my team.
Yeah.
He's a star, and he's awesome, and he's got a great personality, and it works, and makes me happy. And it's shocking how much the Cowboys have blown up having Micah Parsons, who I think we can say is a great star and a personality and all these things. And they have him, doesn't do anything with him. They've got CeeDee Lamb, a great receiver. They don't want to pay him anything, even though he's one of the best in the game. And he's fairly upset, and he doesn't want to play if he's not going to get paid. And Dak Prescott, who doesn't really get in the media a lot. He's the quarterback of the Cowboys, of America's team. He doesn't talk every day to the media. He's not super out there talking to everyone constantly like Aaron Rodgers is. He's not doing that. He's chilling at home, relaxing, being Dak. And for whatever reason,
he's an NFL Man of the Year award winner, so he's out there doing charity work too.
Yeah. He's doing great things.
Even though the Eagles fans booed him.
Craziness across the board when you get the best players or great players in certain spots and you just can't or don't even attempt to figure it out. The Spurs with Victor Wembanyama. A lot of people were calling for them to make a big trade. Get a Trae Young. Atlanta for the last 2 years has said we don't want Trae Young because every coach and every player has been like, I don't want to play with him. He sucks to play with. No one likes him. They didn't go trade for him because why would they?
I didn't like him at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Somebody said, oh, no, he had a great night. I said, no, watch the last 6 weeks. Okay? He got off to a great start at Oklahoma. The last 6 weeks, he didn't play well. And he kept taking the same number of shots.
Yeah.
Like, no, I think it's time for you to stop shooting as much. Look, there are certain people that are great stars that just play well with others. Tom Brady played well with others. Peyton Manning played well with others. Sidney Crosby plays well with others. You know, I mean, you can go on. There's a long list of stars who understand the team concept of the game while also realizing that, hey, you know, I work at my talent every day. You know, I talked with Jim Caldwell, who was Peyton's coach. Not only as a head coach, he was also, before that, his position coach. And he just telling me how he works every day. He's work, right? Bill O'Brien was Tom Brady's coach. And Bill told me Brady just works and works and works all the time. Your stars have to be your hardest workers. Everybody will tell you, you know, a lot of people, you know, LeBron can be a polarizing figure, but nobody can deny he works. I mean, his work ethic is outstanding. Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, his work ethic was off the charts. Bird, Magic, okay, Michael Jordan, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky. Right? It is a big plus when the best player in your organization is your hardest worker. It sets the tone for everybody else. It sets the tone for everybody else.
The reason everyone wants to go play with stars like a Giannis is because he works harder than everyone else does. It's been discussed. He won a title because dude worked his keister off. And in the championship game, the game where you needed him to be him,
He had 50.
He had 50, and he had a triple-double.
Yeah.
50-point triple-double. No one does that. He blocked the shot at the end of the game to stop the Suns from having a shot to win the game. Like, that's what he did, is he ran the length of court and did what LeBron did in that game against the Warriors. So often there's all these people being like, this, you know, they almost got there. They almost did it. The star almost won the game. LeBron in the fourth quarter of Game 7 of a season where he played 82 games, and it's literally the final possible minute of the season, runs the length of the court to catch up with a guy and block a shot at the top of the backboard or bottom of whatever it was. That is hard work, it's effort, all those things. And it confounds me when teams don't see a star who works hard and don't want to try and like use, say, him. I want, like, we're going to make him our franchise and we're going to build around him and get everyone in this building to like get all the talent out of that kid we can.
But part of it is also the decision-making part. Right? So let's take Brock Purdy, who's a 7th-round pick. We all know the last pick in the draft and the whole thing. Why is he the last pick? He's the last pick in the draft despite being a 4-year starter at Iowa State. This is where being a 4-year starter at Iowa State was detrimental to him because you're sitting there and you're looking at every great play he made, but because he's a 4-year starter, you also saw all the bad plays he made. As opposed to the one-hit wonder, right, where the video is limited and you go for fool's gold. Right? It's not a surprise. I mean, it's interesting because when you look at Purdy's a 7th-round pick, Hurts is a 2nd-round pick, Dak's a 4th-round pick, Russell Wilson's a 3rd-round pick. You got a lot of, Brady was a 6th-round pick. It's not always the guys you take in round 1. And too often there are guys taken in round 1 who have limited video because, came out early, only started 1 year. Like, going, okay. And you ask yourself, like, okay. And then there's the other part, too. I want players from winning programs. So please, this is not indicative of that. But, I was asked by a Chicago Bears fan today about, Fields in Chicago, and she said, the Bears just ruined people. I said, you know what? I said, sometimes it's hard for a guy that's been winning the entire time to suddenly be losing all the time.
Yeah.
It has an effect on them.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, look at Jason. Oh, what? No?
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.